Hello, welcome to book club number 2. I've got 4 books to show you, all completely random, but I just stuff which I liked and had at hand. The first of these is not at a certain value actually now. It's by Searle. When I say by Searle, the pictures are not drawings by Searle. Let me give you an example. This is where they got the idea for St. Trinian, the films. Set in a girls' school where they misbehave. Alistair Sim, Dora Bryan, and various people. There we are. I do love his work. Searle suffered terribly badly in concentration camp, and perhaps that's where he got his flavor, taste for the odder things in life, as he desperately sought to stay well. There we are. This was published in it's not a first edition, I don't think. Can't seem to find out when it was published. Oh, never mind. I think it's a 1950s book anyway. He's rather good at these thin and angular women. There we are, another example. Really, no, it's frightfully old dress. It's quite harmless, isn't it? These did live long enough to go into paperback, but if you see the hardbacks, that's where the collector's value is. That's rather nice, isn't it? An optician's. Price is slashed, so lease expiring, so the eye is crying because it's about to leave. One more, just to give you a flavour. People at parties, some guests to avoid. Oh, there we are. Danny Kaye impersonator. I suppose he's an actor-singer, wasn't he? There we are. And this was published by MacDonald of London. Yeah. The second is a very famous book of the 70s. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. If anyone wants a copy of this, I've got 2 of them. Amazingly, there they are. It's a travel book, but it's also philosophic in as much that it adds little things. The motorcycle maintenance is an example of when the engineer has all his tools laid out, and then if somebody just moves one of them slightly, he doesn't know where it is. And it's his journeying across America on a motorbike. Now, if to you that sounds dull or obscure, it isn't dull, but it can be obscure. And Pirsig, in about the last 5 years, did write not a sequel, but another book. This was first published by the Bodley Head, so my goodness, I've got more highfalutin than that, in 1974. I didn't realize it was that long ago, actually. Zen Buddhist practice. It's not very factual on motorcycles either, it says. It's not without humor. but it is basically a serious book. I read it, or tried to read it, when I was at sixth form college, and I've always had respect for it. There we are. If you like unusual books, I'll never quite have found anything quite like this before. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it's published by Cogan. The next book is one of my all-time favourites. This is a book about Alma Cogan, who was a singer who died. There's Myra Hindley on the cover. Presumably they're by Andy Warhol, or imagined to be. There's the good lady again. Didn't know that picture was there, is it? This is a might have been picture. Might have been book about what might have happened had Alma Cogan not died as young as she did. And it's been novelization. And someone who becomes obsessed by her. I read it about 15, 20 years ago, and I've recommended it to several of my friends, and they all liked it too. And I hope you can as well. It talks about obsession, about somebody that had her face tattooed on his front, and all the awful things that sounds like something out of Alan Partridge, doesn't it? All the awful things that they got up to in view of their obsession with her. I'm going through this because haven't done any preparation. The volunteer was shown a number of books and invited to pick up a single title. Having made this his selection, the volunteer would ask to tell the audience how many pages there were in the volume he was now holding. He would then ask to nominate a number, pick a page, any page, between 1 and the number he just mentioned. This done, he would next be asked a number corresponding to the line of text on the page, and to read the line aloud to the audience. As he read, the magician would chalk the words on the board, write rapidly, dotting the I's noisily, and making strange bits of business to build up the dramatic tension. I would sense the hush and hear the urgency of the scrape of chalk on board as I sat waiting to go on. And when I did, I would invariably reach out and turn up the volume on the tannoy in my dressing room in order to catch the odd words wrenched from the context. Were this time around. The act would be brought to a conclusion by a conjurer, removing a cigarette from the silver case, showing it to the audience with a flourish, bringing a light to it, and exhaling a long puff of smoke up to the spotlight to prove it was real. Then taking care to ensure that a flash, a semaphore, in the light as he had produced it, he would take a razor blade and carefully slice through the cigarette from top to bottom, finally drawing back his cuffs conspicuously. He would tamp the loose tobacco into the cupped palm of his assistant and pass what was left to the volunteer from the audience. Would you please read what is written on the piece of paper? And what was written, of course, was what was spelled out on the board, which was the assistant was now parading across the stage in one of those girls in savagely cut satin hot pants who would go round cards at championships, boxing matches, cue walk-off music, cue applause. I didn't read that very well, but nevertheless, it will give you a flavour that this is a book of make-believe, but it's also, in a way, hard-hitting and in a way rather sad, even though Alma Cogan died young. This deals with all aspects of what might have been. There we are. Now, the last I haven't opened at all, and It's subtitled The Most Dangerous and Bizarre Sports in History. And there it is, fox tossing, octopus wrestling, and other forgotten sports. This is quite a new book, I think. It's published by Simon and Schuster. And this is by Edward Brooke-Hitching. And it was published, just have some coffee. Cheers. It was published in 2015. And it deals with some bow and arrow golf, boxing on horseback, bull running, car versus bull, cat burning, centrifugal bowling. Some of this is horrible, isn't it? Close quarter bear combat, cock shying, and other poultry-based blood sports. And so it goes on. There's 3 pages of content list. Quotes Dr. Johnson, sports something that unbends the mind by turning it off from care. It unbends the mind by turning it off from care. Yeah. For, until recently, writers and historians haven't considered sport to be particularly worthy of record, and we are left with fewer details than of other period of life. That's true. I had John Major's book on the history of cricket, which I bought to give to my uncle, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do so. And I read most of it, not every word, but most of it myself. And I concluded that John Major, perhaps, and maybe other people, didn't know the origin of cricket anyway. Not really. Sometimes their necks are broken, sometimes their backs, sometimes their legs, sometimes their arms. Sometimes one part is thrust out of joint, and sometimes the noses gush out with blood. Football encourages envy and hatred, sometimes fighting, murder, and great loss of blood. Ooh. This is from The Anatomy of Abuses, 1583. Well, I don't care when it was written. I don't think just something as horrible as that needs to be preserved, do you? The idea of this book, stated with the image of 18th century Germans catapulting foxes into the air for fun, and the strangeness developed from there. Eccentricity is not just included, but celebrated. Provided here is a collection of windows into periods of history so startling that they push the limits of credibility and invoke a new level of appreciation for the humour, the ingenuity, and the times, the sheer madness of our ancestors. Well, I don't know about any of that, because as I hastily explained, I haven't read the book. Man baiting, a practice that took place in the deepest shadows of the underworld, in smoke-filled basements and airless cellars of nondescript buildings on forgotten streets. Modern society owes much to the innovation of the ancient Greeks in the field of philosophy, politics, medicine, art, and almost every other significant aspect of developing civilization. I couldn't argue with that. But what of their off-duty activities, about to hit you with it now, when the sun had set on the productive day's musing and the mind began to turn into more frivolous and booze-fueled entertainment. Catabosh, sometimes Cottabush, was a drinking competition of skill and decadence, popular in the 4th and 5th centuries BC, in which contestants flung the contents of their wine cups at targets in basins with remarkable accuracy. Maintaining a reclining position at the dining table, the player would deftly flick his chalice with his right hand, sending the remaining wine and lees Oh, that's an interesting word. And Lees flying through the air in one unbroken liquid missile. The best player had the aim of spitting cobra and were held in similar level of regard as those who threw the javelin. Well, that became an Olympic sport, but I'm not sure this would. The game was heavily gambled upon, and because of the element of luck involved, the performance of each catabosh contestant was viewed as the omen of their future successes, especially in affairs of the heart. Right. I will not continue reading, at least not that bit. I'll read you one more. This is Octopus wrestling, something I'm sure you've done yourself. And if Jim Plaskett is reading this, he will know all about it. One October afternoon in 2012, two American teenagers emerged from the Pacific Ocean with a fresh catch. Ordinarily, they wouldn't have drawn a crowd. For this instant, the young divers were wrestling with a 9-foot giant Pacific octopus and repeatedly punched it in the face. Ooh. Early that day, 19-year-old Dylan Mayer had bought a permit from the local Walmart store that legally allowed him to catch and cook an octopus on the local Bay Area. He had never tried to catch the creature before, but he had experienced in bull castration and slaughter, and I did warn you, and assumed these to be transferable skills. He set about with his friend, Aliki Beach, West Seattle. Arriving mid-afternoon, the pair slipped into their wetsuits, checked their regulators, and headed for Cove 2. 85 feet down, amid the wreckage of an old marina, he spotted his quarry and drew his companion's attention to the large octopus with the help of the diver's slate. "It's a big octopus," he wrote. Mayer decided he would give the slumbering beast single-handedly and grabbed a protruding tentacle. The teenager was determined, though, and tugged appendages until it provoked the creature into furious, whirling attack. His tentacles wrapped around the boy like a boa constrictor, knocking the breathing apparatus from his mouth and attempting to squeeze the air from his chest. You really want more of this? Okay, well, you can have it. I'll just see how it ends up. Right. There would be human-like moan, and water would be clouded with sepia. The long tentacles would flay the surface of the lagoon in savage fury as the monster tried to rid itself of our spears, which were firmly embedded in its head. If necessary, another spear would be dispatched into the writhing hulk. It took a long time to tire the octopus, and we had to hold firmly with the ropes attached to the end of the spears to prevent it from sinking to the bottom of the lagoon, where it would be lost to us. There's actually a photograph of it here. They set up a world championship for doing this sort of thing in Washington in 1963. Well, I've eaten in a restaurant octopus calamari, I suppose it's called, isn't it? Octo expertise to Hollywood and became a successful stuntman. It is said that Cecil B. DeMille admired O'Rourke's work and once engaged him to wrestle an octopus for 3 days when he knew quite well he would not be using the episode in the film he was shooting. Well, how sadistic in every direction and more. Among fans of the sport was the writer H. Allen Smith, who took the opportunity presented by the resurgent interest to recount the story of one of the originators of the sport in an article True magazine in 1964. Rush out and buy a copy. Let's see what else there is. Pig running. As with cocks throughout history, pigs were commonly used as scapegoats. Spectacles involving their suffering functioned as kind of superstitious catharsis. Really? The Game of Sow and the Blind Man. Sport et jeu d'adresse. Sorry, I can't speak French anyway. Pig hunting, or hunting the pig, was a game popular at English fairs and celebrations. After the dinner, the captain and myself, this is from Learned Pig of 1785, the captain and myself went and saw the Learned Pig at the Rampant House in St. Stephen's. It was wonderful to see the sagacity of the animal. It was a boar pig, very thin, quite black, with a magic collar on its neck. He would spell any word or numbers of letters, and figures were placed before him. Wonderful. Pig sticking, except murder. Genesis chapter 2. Pig sticking is one of the oldest sports in the world. So began Lord Baden-Powell celebrating boar hunting, pig sticking, or hog hunting. There's also a book by Willie Rushton with a similar title. It's not a similar book. Definitely not. Some of these illustrations are a bit small. Here's one, I'll show you. It's obviously a woodcut, and I'm sure it's pleasant or relevant, a bit of both. Ratting. It was the smell that first struck you upon venturing down the rickety wooden stairs, the stench of filthy rats, dogs, and humans mixed in with the miasma of cigar smoke and cheap beer. Sounds like Basingstoke Chess Club. You found yourself in a dank basement filled wall to wall with boisterous gamblers, snarling bulldogs, and wriggling sacks of rats. And if you managed to fight your way ringside, you were in a prime position to witness a form of animal fighting that, while savage, distinguished itself from other forms of baiting with its focus on speed of kill rather than sustained suffering. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, this book is, as I say, published by Simon and Schuster. It was $8.99, but that was a while ago, perhaps. There it is, and I'll put the details down below. This has been book card number 2. Thank you for listening. I'm James Pratt. Goodbye.